We're live. Put your X up in the air. This HCPX Cali X Boxing 2.0 here with D Style. This is what we do, and this is Thursday. I love Thursdays because what do? We talk about the fights coming up this weekend. Anthony
This
Joshua.
is how we do it.
AJ's back. Like AJ's back in effect. AJ's back in effect.
I don't
Are
call it
you
comeback.
excited? Are you excited about Anthony Joshua as I am? Are you excited or not? Or is it like mid? Are you like
I'm going to be very honest. I'm not excited about the fight. Like, I'm not going to act like I am. But I'm okay with it. I'm going to watch it. I'm okay with it. A just had a tough schedule. He just got off two tough back-to-back fights with Usyk. He's coming off back-to-back losses. You want to get a guy back in there just with anybody. Get a W, get back in the winner's column, and then you could start to, like, the road to redemption starts here, right? It's time for Joshua to work his way back up. He started with Franklin, who's a top 15, maybe top 20 heavyweight in the world. Like he didn't fight some obscure dude from nowhere. Like he's fighting, to be safe, let's say a top 20 heavyweight in the world to start the comeback. That is a drop off for him, but still, I'll take it. And after that, I believe they're going to do the white fight. I'm kind of about it, but whatever. But I understand it's the way, it's the road back. You know what I mean? I'm okay with it.
And I'm putting the poll up right now. Are you excited about AJ's return? Make sure that y'all vote on that poll. I'm excited about his return, but like you, not excited about the fight. And I think that's the universal response to this, right? It's like Jermaine Franklin, he's 11-1 favorite over Jermaine Franklin. Jermaine Franklin. This should be a knockout, right? This should be AJ coming back. And we're going to start to see the new training camp, right? That's the most interesting thing to me is it seems in the media, I don't know if you've been following what's been going on in the media this week, is AJ seems a little testier. He seems a little, I'm kind of frustrated. I'm tired of hearing all the narratives. I want to be a killer now. And I want to see if he carries that on into the future. Like this will be the start of that. I want to see him come in first round and just go right after this dude and try to knock him out, like immediately, right. And just get on the microphone and say, bring everybody to me. That's what I want to see, because I'm sure you're like me. Like he lost 3 out of his last 5, but if you look at his resume, like this is what's fun to me about AJ, and this is the appeal to him is Usyk, Pulev, Ruiz, Povetkin, Parker, Takam, Klitschko. I mean, we got Molina, Brazil, and those guys were undefeated. Charles Martin, Dillian White. This is his resume, and that consecutively he put it together. He put that together. So I can forgive him for losses, right? You want to see more than 27 fights in a decade, sure. So that'd be my only criticism of him is there were some pauses in his career waiting for Usyk for a rematch. I would have liked to have seen fights in between them to stay sharp, right? To work on development. Yeah. But what I got to give him is, despite only having 27 fights, he's in there. He is in there. He's putting himself out there, right? Like I don't read too much into, Anthony Joshua has fallen off, because I just think Usyk's a special fighter. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't. I'll be honest. AJ looked, even though Usyk
the second
beat him,
fight, he looked better, right?
Yeah, he looked bad in the rematch. He didn't look bad in the first fight. He was just in there with who I believe is a really, really great fighter. I mean, there's no shame in losing to Usyk. I mean, it just is what it is. You know what I mean? Usyk's just that guy that Joshua's not going to be able to beat. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's that, like Frazier wasn't able to beat Foreman. It doesn't mean Frazier was a bad fighter. You know what I mean? It just means that style was bad for Frazier. But I'll tell you what. It's not like AJ got dominated and destroyed in both fights. He was competitive in both fights. I thought the first fight was an 8-4 type fight. I scored the rematch 7-5. Mm-hmm. So like slightly better in both, but close, but no cigar, but no shame in that. I honestly believe he's going to knock Franklin out. I think he's going to show his levels to this. He's going to show he's still, AJ of old. I think he's going to show people I'm still here. But this is my comeback. I have a new trainer. I like the fact that he's training in the U.S. To just to get yourself out of your comfort zone, out of your element. And I'm happy for that. I like the fact that I saw reports, bro, that came out. Oh, Josh was saying if he loses, he'll retire, and you know what I mean. I thought that upped the ante. Like, okay, well, at least that's in the line. So let me tune in. If he loses, this could be it, right? And then he does an interview and he says, I mean, I never said that. I'll retire when I want to retire. Like, but whatever.
I have an interesting question to ask you in the chat. Before I do that, I want to pull up the betting odds. This is what the betting odds look like for this fight. And Joshua on the top line is an 11-1 favorite. So I'm not even going to, I wouldn't even suggest anybody bet Franklin for the upset. If you want to put some money down on it, that's fine. But 11-1 odds, there's just not much value in that. But this is the method of result. This is Anthony Joshua by knockout is the clear favorite. Much like the Benavidez Plant fight, everything else is in the positive.
I like that plus 420.
So you like Joshua by decision plus 420? Do you?
No, I like the odds.
I know what you mean. Like you see some value in putting.
Like I could put $20 on that, and if I lose, I lose $20, right?
But if I win, I did with Benavidez Plant last week. I put $20 down on the plus 450 Benavidez decision. And if it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, I lose $20. It's not a big deal.
I might just put a little.
Other than doing something like that, I don't really see much value here because I think strongly.
Franklin's never been knocked out. So
never been knocked out, right? Big step up. So I mean, you might be right. Maybe Joshua.
It's a new trainer for AJ. So it's kind of changing stuff around. He's working on some things. He may want to go some rounds to work on some things anyway. So that kind of favors you a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? If he goes in there saying, let's work for the first 4 or 5 rounds and then we'll try to stop him, he's giving you a 4 or 5 round head start, right? So, but aside from, I'll put a little bit of small change on that. I don't see any value in any of the other stuff.
I don't either, unless you parlay Anthony Joshua by knockout with another fight that we'll look at later. So I'll hold my thoughts on that. But if you put $10 down on Anthony Joshua by decision, like you said, maybe he starts off slow with the new trainer. Maybe he's working on some things, and he's trying to go rounds. Maybe perhaps Franklin is one of those guys like a Jermaine Ortiz who
and there's a headbutt and the doctor stops it and it goes to decision. You win too. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that crazy. Plus 420. If you're gonna bet AJ. But just know that you're likely to lose your 20 or $10, right? Just know you're likely to lose it. But if you win it, it's a big win.
Yeah, and I think that's what most people are saying in the chat. Why did he fire Garcia though? I just think there was some issues there, right? And the sad part about that really is, I thought he looked good in the second fight. Usyk just looked better, but I thought they made some proper adjustments in that fight, and I didn't think Anthony Joshua would look bad in that second fight. I really didn't. Like, I think this narrative or this thing being pushed that Anthony Joshua's downfall is here, I think it's just overvalued. Besides that first Ruiz fight where he did slip up, in my opinion, he's put together a nice run. Other than that, I get it though. 3 out of his last 5 are losses. You can't just wipe that aside. I understand it, but I think Anthony Joshua comes back and looks good on Saturday, and it opens up possible fights. They want to fight 3 times this year, possible fights for later in the year that are bigger. And that leads me to my question is, if you had to pick one fighter, and the chat can answer this question too, if you had to pick one heavyweight in the heavyweight rankings, like I'll pull that up too. This is the heavyweight rankings right here. This is it. Who's that guy that's going to have the biggest win of the year? If you look at Usyk, Fury, Wilder, Joshua, Joyce, Ruiz Jr. It's hard to say because we don't know who these guys are going to fight, right?
So we don't know who they're going to fight, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say Fury over Usyk. But the fight has to happen. And he's got to beat him. I mean, it's like that's 2 hurdles to cross, but
It's hurdles, and they're gonna fight other fights before that. So do they get a second fight in? That's the
Right,
thing.
right. Oh, for
And then
sure.
you throw in Wilder. Who is Wilder gonna fight? If he
Right.
fights Ruiz, that gives him a win against the number 5 or number 6 guy. AJ beats Franklin, and now everybody wants to fight AJ, right? Because he looks a little bit vulnerable, and he's still the biggest name in the division. So that's why I'm gonna say AJ. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say AJ because I think he's gonna have the most opportunities at the big fight, and guys will be jumping at that fight. And I think people are not measuring Joshua's career correctly at this point, where he's at, because I think they're reading too much into those Usyk losses, and I don't think there's another guy out there that can do to him what Usyk did to him.
And by the way, I'll just totally agree with those rankings. I would have Joshua at number 2.
I'd also have Joshua as the number 2 contender.
Yeah.
Usyk, Fury, Joshua, Wilder, and I agree. Like, some people think Joyce is too high. I don't. I
It's
like
about
Joyce.
right.
I like Joyce top 5 or 6. I think it's right. And if these reports are true that Fury is going to possibly fight Joyce, good Lord.
Yeah.
Good Lord. How do you think that fight plays out?
Joyce and AJ?
No. Fury versus Joyce.
Oh, Fury versus Joyce. I think Fury smashes him.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I'll tell you why. Because first of all, the versatility of Fury. People underestimate how hard Fury hits with his right hand. That's number one. We know, right? We know he's not going to miss. He's going to be hitting. Okay, Joyce. And if what's Joyce going to bank on? Fury getting tired? Fury's not going to get tired. Whenever he's going to get tired in a fight. So and then not only that, like Fury could mix it up. He could box him some rounds. He can move around some rounds. And I think he's going to make Joyce miss a lot. I think he's going to attack the body effectively. I don't think he knocks Joyce out, but I do think he gives him a sound beating for 12 rounds.
The issue is Joyce is not going to allow himself to be clinched. He throws 90 punches per round as a heavy, which is absurd. It's just he's putting up an absurd amount.
How does he fit that many punches as slow as he is in 3 minutes? I mean,
I don't know. And that's the thing. I think he's a tough out for everybody, especially if his chin is as good as everybody thinks it is. It's like, how do you deal with the guy throwing that many punches per round with a chin like that in a division where the output is so low?
I just don't know.
Would Fury be able to just stink that fight out? I think that's the one fight he would not be able to stink up.
I think Fury smashes him.
You know what? I think Joyce wins that fight.
No way.
No way.
I don't see it. I don't even think Joyce beats Wilder. Wilder knocks the spark out.
Knocks him the spark out. And Wilder versus Usyk, I'm intrigued by it. If that fight happens, like Wheelchair Man John is saying that they're throwing that out there, I love that fight because I want to see.
Does Usyk have, even if you don't think Wilder beats Usyk, but is there a scary moment for Usyk in that fight?
Mm-hmm.
I think there is.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. Wilder always gives you that in your head in the mythical matchups. There's always that scary moment, right? He's gonna land the punch.
There's always and I think people did the third fight a disservice, and maybe it's because they just wanted to stick the knife on the Wilder fans and stuff like that. But I think, I remember watching
a lot of people wanted to see Undisputed.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is the fight itself. Like, I remember sitting down in the theater watching that fight, being on the edge of my seat, wondering when that right hand's going to land again. Right? It's like this. It's like you can't really explain it, but there's like this feeling in the air, right? That's there, right? Now, obviously, once he stopped Wilder, that feeling vanished, right? And the feeling became less and less the further the fight progressed. But it was always there. Like, oh man, what if he lands it? What if he lands the hammer? And I think, of course, once the fight's over, it's easy to say, I didn't think he had a shot. I wasn't panicking during the fight. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I felt it. I felt that force or whatever you want to call it during the fight. I felt it, right? And it made the fight intriguing and it made the fight very enjoyable as a boxing fan for me, like while I was watching it. So
that was a great fight.
That's gonna be there in the Usyk fight. Even okay, let's say round 1, Usyk got boxes on. Round 2, man, Usyk's up 2-0. Like it's still in your head. You're still thinking about it, man. If he lands that fucking big hammer, holy shit, right? And he could put him away. It just takes one. And can Usyk take it the same way a 6'9" Fury can?
This is the beautiful thing about this division is we can argue about how talented we think it is, and especially compared to heavyweight divisions of the past. But one thing we know is there are fun fights to make here.
Luis Ortiz is way too high in that list.
Who's that?
I don't like Luis Ortiz on that list. I would remove Luis Ortiz from the list, and I'll have Zhang at 10. That's me.
And then I'm looking forward to see Jared Anderson start to pop up on this list in the next year or two. That's going to start now. When that happens, boy, that's going to be fun.
What about Baby Miller?
Did you see this meme floating around on Twitter earlier? I think Fury cheated. Boo, get better material. Fury cheated. Fury cheated. This dude just says Fury cheated, and nobody believes that Fury cheated. Fury cheated.
Unless you're Ali setback, right? Unless you're Ali setback because he wants access to your camps, you can interview him.
He's the one guy who believes it, right?
Yeah, tell him. I'm not gonna say who. Like Jesus Christ, bro.
It's like if you jaywalk and then dude, shut up.
He's like a fucking owl, bro. He's an owl. He's like the owl. Like I'm not gonna say who. Like shut up, bro.
He's the one person that either believes the narrative or he's just doing it to get the clicks.
Dude is whoever gives him access to interview, right? That's who he rolls with. Like, and it's obvious. Anyone who can't see it about Ali setback, I don't know what to tell you, right? And I'll tell you what, Cal, that's becoming boxing media now, right? Whoever gets access, gives me access, I will speak favorably for. I will. In fact, one of the reasons there's so many content creators that talk so much shit about Canelo because he doesn't really give YouTubers access. Okay,
right. That's true.
Right, but guess what? David Benavidez Sr. does show up to live streams and give guys interviews. David does. Jose Benavidez Sr. I meant. David does give interviews, so there's an incentive for guys to like say he's a boogeyman. Canelo doesn't want that smoke. He doesn't like. You know what I mean? I'm not saying everyone who gets David does that, but there's an incentive for people to do it, right? Where Canelo, it doesn't give access. So you could talk shit about Canelo and you're not ruining anything. He doesn't give access to anybody anyway, right? Like Wilder gives access to people. He doesn't even give access to Nestor Gibbs, who's a Wilder fan.
Yeah.
Just because Nestor said, I'm not buying this Glovegate thing. That was unforgivable to Wilder.
Yeah.
Right? Nestor Gibbs picked up to beat Fury, said he has a shot. He was for the third fight. He said it was better for boxing than the undisputed fight. Right? Or maybe I misinterpreted what he meant during that time, but it wasn't good enough, Galax. You need to say, King, you were cheated, my king. My king, they did you wrong. You're undefeated. You got to say he's undefeated. That's a litmus test to get access to this guy.
I've said it. Is if you're still getting the Deontay Wilder interviews, that is not a good thing. It's a good thing as far as your clicks, but the things you have to say and do to still get the Deontay Wilder interviews, that is not good. There is a lot of knee pad wearing in order to still have that. And on top of that, what you're saying about Canelo is right, because people say, oh, the Canelo love gets you click. It doesn't. The Canelo hate is out there getting the clicks because of what you said. He's not giving YouTubers the access. And on top of that, guys like Benavidez, guys like Boo Boo Andrade, Charlo showing up at fights drunk, they're the ones giving the YouTubers access. So it behooves these channels to cheer for these guys, push these narratives for them. And that's why you're getting so much of this. But once again, and I don't want to make this show about Canelo, but the piece of advice I would give that I gave people on Twitter earlier is, if you don't want Canelo to be the face of boxing, who is it that's constantly talking about Canelo? It's his detractors. So simply just stop talking about him. I mean, it's an easy exercise. This is an easy exercise for the anti-Canelo channels, is go the rest of the week this week without doing a video about him. Go the rest of the week without tweeting about it. You know, just see if you can do that. It's easy for you because it's Thursday. You just got to go 3 or 4 more days. Just see if you can do it. Like, if the only thing that you're tweeting or doing videos about is responses to Canelo's fans or Canelo, then you likely have what we call CDS. That's Canelo derangement syndrome, but that's keeping his face out there. That's keeping him the face of boxing.
Yeah, look, here's something I've noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed the same thing. A lot of these Canelo detractors, bro, not that I want to dive too far from anything, but a lot of these Canelo detractors, they're not used to the pushback, and I've noticed that, right? For the longest time, when people will criticize Canelo or just say something crazy, I just saw it and I was like, I just moved, okay, whatever. That's so ridiculous. I'm not going to entertain it, and I just let it go. But then I said, you know what? Once I started hearing these narratives, like, oh, there's all these Canelo fans, and they don't want the Benavidez fight, right? And I said to myself, maybe they're out there, man. Maybe there's an army of these Canelo fans. I haven't seen them, so can you show them to me, right? And I don't think dudes are used to the pushback, right? There's another guy. He's kind of big on Twitter. He's coming out saying that all the Canelo fans they're pushing for Benavidez to fight Charlo. Like, what?
Never happened.
Like, that's just not true. Now, could you find what they do is they find one person to say it in the chat, and then they read it and say, "Oh yeah, the Canelo fans are doing that." Maybe there's a Canelo fan that's saying that, but you don't even know it's a troll. You don't like. What are we doing here? You know, like is Jose Senior a Canelo fan? Because he's the one saying they want the Charlo fight.
Yeah, and it comes down to access. And like this tweet, I don't want to personally, but then this guy that you're talking, I know what the guy you're talking about on Twitter.
I don't know his name, to be honest. I would say his name. I just don't remember his name.
Two-Tone the Superstar. He, by the way, he's a good dude, but he has access to Benavidez. That's the issue here. He has access to Benavidez. So once again, he's going to push the narratives for Benavidez. It just happens. You know, the great journalists can get the access despite anything. Now, there are blacklists, there are bans, but these other guys, they're not going to get the access unless they push these things, right? They're not going to keep. It's like I said, It's not hard in the boxing world to get an interview. It's really not. It's hard to keep those interviews. It's hard to keep access to those fighters, because once you say something bad about that fighter, like say a Jose Ramirez, once we say, no, you should have fought that Regis Prograis fight, then you're going to lose access to that fighter. It's hard to keep it real and keep that relationship with the fighter. And a lot of people want to keep that access because monetarily it works for them. But the good thing about the heavyweight division, I saw this comment up earlier. Let me get back to it. Is it was about Klitschko. Here it is. It's these heavyweights, although not as great as Klitschko, they have better qualities, right? They're not gonna clinch and hold. And even though Klitschko was still getting the knockouts and he was still filling up arenas, he was so dominant that it became dull, right? It was like, oh, here comes Klitschko. He's going to knock somebody else out in a mundane fight. These are fun matchups. These are all fun matchups at heavyweight. We can talk about their flaws. We can talk about Deontay Wilder's obvious flaws. We can talk about Usyk being too small. We can talk about Fury being a head case, but they all make for fun matchups. Joe Joyce slow. They all make for fun matchups. They do. And that's the fun thing about the heavyweight division and why that's the draw to it. Right. So we also have this fight this weekend, and this is the more interesting one to me, even though Anthony Joshua, I'm glad to see him back. This is Robeisy Ramirez versus Isaac Dogboe, and I love 126. And Ramirez now is 6.5 to 1 favorite against Dogboe. Dogboe is one of those fighters that, maybe he's fringe top 10. He's not top 10 in Ring Magazine, but he's a great measuring stick. He's a guy with attrition. His only 2 losses are to Navarrete, but he's a guy that's going to be tough to get out of there. Navarrete got him out of there in the second fight, but he's a guy who's going to be tough to get out of there. So if there's any fake in Robeisy Ramirez, if there's any like this guy is not who we thought he was, Dogboe is the type of guy that may find it out, right?
Yeah,
and it's not that he
I'm
has
not too
great
sold on
power. It's not that he's a great technical fighter. He's just there. He's tough to cut. He's tough to get out of there. He's just going to be there.
Yeah, he's look. Dogboe at the time, Navarrete didn't really get the credit for beating him. They were saying he was too big, and what I mean. But I think it was it's probably the best win of Navarrete's career, if we're honest, because of the way he beat Dogboe in the rematch. But I'm very confident that Robeisy Ramirez is going to win this fight. I know that somebody may look at that plus 475 and say, man, that's that. I wouldn't. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Don't do it. You're just throwing your money away. I'm just being 100% honest with you. Maybe the under, and minus 125 is worth at 10.5. Maybe I guess, but I personally believe that Robeisy Ramirez will stalk Dogboe. Or Dogboe, however you want to pronounce it. What Robeisy did to Supernova was very impressive to me. He shut him down, he outboxed him, and he just annihilated him. Okay, knocked him out in devastating fashion. He has transitioned to the pro successfully, and he's also a walking reminder that just because a fighter loses a fight, you don't just throw him away. Just because you take an L doesn't mean you're not a good fighter. It doesn't make you less of a fighter. He lost his pro debut. Think of what are the chances that a gold medalist going to make his debut with Top Rank, the Masters at matchmaking, and he loses his first fight, gets knocked down, doesn't look the part. A lot of people, including myself, were saying maybe the pros just isn't for him, right?
Right.
I don't know the pros is going to work out for this guy because he got knocked down. He looked so good. It was a debatable fight, but he shouldn't have been in a debatable fight in that first fight.
Right.
But then Top Rank matched him up well for the next few fights. He won the rematch with that same guy that beat him in very dominating fashion and has only been progressing and improving. And he looks phenomenal in the ring, bro. He's one of the best out there. And I'm going to say something. I'm just going to say it. He is the best 126-pounder on the planet today.
Whoa.
I will say that right now. He is the best at 126 right now. Nobody's better than Robeisy Ramirez at 126 pounds. I would favor him against anybody, and people will know why when he does what he does to Dogboe.
Okay, so anytime I see a fight go the distance and it's even, anytime I see 10.5 over under and it's close to even, and then if you look at the method of result, Ramirez by decision and Ramirez by knockout are exactly the same. Vegas does not know if Ramirez is going to pull off this stoppage or not. Right? They think it's going to be close, and they're
That's
not.
how we fight. Yeah.
No, they're confident about who is going to have their hand held at the end, but will it be by decision or knockout? I'm not sure. So it's going to be tough to find value in this. But going back to a 2-fight parlay would be if you think AJ is going to win by knockout, which I think so. You can parlay AJ by knockout at like minus 360, and then if you think Robeisy Ramirez gets the knockout, you can parlay that with the plus 120 and get better odds. That may end up what I'm doing because I tend to agree with you that I think Robeisy Ramirez is going to have a show-out performance.
Yeah.
I think he could quite possibly do what Navarrete did in the second fight and stop Isaac Dogboe in this fight. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just do a nice little 2-fight parlay with that, and try to get better odds. I mean, why not? And
I think
126,
Ramirez by winning straight up is a lock, in my opinion.
yeah,
But
yeah,
are the odds good? They're not good.
they're not good. That's the issue. There's not much value in that.
I
Now
kind of
this is
wish they
what you're,
were closer, to be honest with you. But look, I have all the respect for Lara. Right? Objectively speaking, he should be the best. Like I get it, right?
mhm.
Venado Lopez, he's gonna fight Conlan. I think he's gonna win that fight, to be honest. But that's a great fight. I love it. He's up there. But I just think in terms of and Warrington, I mean, I think Warrington's done, to be honest with you. But I think Robeisy Ramirez is the only one that has a shot against all the above.
He's sitting there at number 9 right now, and I think that's just he's climbing his way up, right?
It's just
He's
a matter of time. I think he enters the top 5 easy after this win. I am that much of a believer in Robeisy Ramirez. I think he does outbox Lara. I do believe that. I think he's a superior boxer than a Wood, and we saw Wood had success boxing Lara, right? I think Robeisy Ramirez embarrasses Josh Warrington, to be honest with you. I think he easily outboxes Maxayo. I think Venal Lopez is a tough fight for him, but I ultimately believe he gets his arm raised in the end. I mean,
so the picture at 126 is this: Ray Vargas has the WBC.
Yep.
Lopez currently has the IBF, but he's going to be fighting another guy in the top 10, Mick Conlan, pretty soon. Love that fight for the IBF, by the way.
Yep.
And then Ray Vargas is sitting there with the WBC. He was kicked back down to 126. He was able to keep the belt and fight O'Shake Foster at 130, but he's going back down to 126, obviously, where I think he fits in nicely still. So this is a nice division full of fights that you can do unifications, nice defenses in the top 10. And I keep going back to this. I don't know if there's a great fighter at 126, but it's full of good fighters with potential to be great. And Robeisy Ramirez may have the guy with the highest ceiling. Would you agree with that? Like, because we see this division right now, as Lara's there, Vargas is there. You have 8 guys in front of them, but
I'll tell you what Robeisy
is the highest ceiling of all these guys.
Robeisy Ramirez is the Heisman Trophy winner that had a very rough year in his first year. Okay, didn't look so good, didn't look the part. Okay, but then came back his second year, and he wasn't the MVP, but he was a top 10 quarterback in the league. That's how much of an improvement he made, right? And you got to look at the trajectory, right? Nova is a really good fighter, and he made him look subpar, right? Like, I do believe Nova could be a future world champion, but that's how good Robeisy is, all right? And I think Top Rank was like a sink or swim fight for them with those 2 guys at that point.
Yeah.
They wanted to know, hey, we've invested a lot in Robeisy. We had a slow start because you lost your pro debut. We got to find out if you're the real deal, and that's what he did. I want people, don't forget, he's the last guy to beat Shakur Stevenson in a fight. It might have been the amateurs, but it was high stakes, and it was the Olympic gold medal match, right? So you got to factor that in. Like, that's how good Robeisy Ramirez is. And I do believe the ceiling is higher. Look, it doesn't mean we don't do fantasy matchups over here. We don't. I'm not going to be like, oh, he's the best. He doesn't need to prove it. Just give him the crown. No. He's got to fight Lara. He's got to see Lopez. If Conlan beats Lopez, he's got to see Conlan, whatever, right? Maybe a Wood down the line. Well, Wood's not on this list. That's kind of surprising.
Lee Wood's 6. He's there.
Is he there? I don't see him.
Yeah, number 6.
Oh, shit. He doesn't have the afro. Okay, that's why I didn't recognize him. You know what I mean? And
So
then they have him with the Commonwealth belt.
And that was a hell of a fight with Lara.
Yeah. So look, and I get it. If anybody tells me, come on, these style Lara's number 1, I'm not going to argue with you. Objectively speaking, based on accomplishment, he should be number 1, right? I am admittedly basing this off eye tests and looking at the trajectory and how high the ceiling of Robeisy Ramirez is. I do believe Robeisy is going to be campaigning in a couple years at 130 and win a belt there. This is a multi-divisional champion, in my opinion. Okay, so people could take it however they want. I would favor him in a fight against any of these guys. But Venado Lopez and even Figueroa are tough fights for him stylistically. But I think he wins them. I really do.
Now, the beautiful thing about under 135 is, although these are all good to great fighters underneath there at the top of divisions, is they don't have the names of guys of upper divisions, the name and the marketability. So your chances of getting a lot of these fighters are higher. Fights are higher. Being that, you're not going to have guys constantly posturing online and stuff like that. So the fun part about this is I think we'll get a lot of these fights, and we're already getting some of them. Like I said, I mean, Conlon is about to fight Lopez for a belt, and Lee Wood just fought Lara, and now we're going to get Robeisy Ramirez against the guy sitting right outside the top 10 in Dogboe. And another guy that I'll throw out there that has, I feel, a nice ceiling and is younger and is entering the division and looks good so far in the division is Brandon Figueroa. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Brandon Figueroa to beat Robeisy Ramirez and to have a fight like that, right? Like you can do a Mexico versus Puerto Rico type thing there, and then have those guys fight for a belt or something like that. I wouldn't put it past Figueroa to mess around and beat a lot of these guys.
The Figueroa will be a tough matchup for everybody because of his volume, right? There's always going to be at least that one judge that's going to have it at least close every single time because of his volume. He doesn't stop coming. Like, it's relentless pressure. I don't know how long this will continue. And I think he has a very underrated left hook. But if I were to put percentages on it, I'll just go through it really quick. Robeisy Ramirez Lara, I think that's like a 45-55 fight. I would favor Ramirez, but I'm giving Lara 45. That he could still win. Like, you know what I mean? Ray Vargas, I gotta be honest with you, it's actually like a 70-30 in favor of Robeisy for me. Right? So I'll give Vargas like a 30% chance to win. Venal Lopez, that's another that's like a 52-48. Like, I think it's really close. 52-48 for Figueroa as well. Maxayo, that's like an 80-20 in favor of Robeisy to me. Wood, maybe like a 70-30 in favor of Robeisy. Warrington, 80-20 Robeisy.
Yeah. Same with Kiko. Same with Mick Conlon. I think the second part
That's
of that.
Kiko? I thought it was like some white dude from the U.S. I was trying to figure out what that was.
That second part, the second half of that top five, I think Robeisy handles pretty good. Besides maybe Lee Wood. I think that's a tougher fight.
Give me a percentage. Like, what percentage shot do you give him against Lara?
I think it's 50-50.
50-50? Okay, what about let's go down the line
respect, now. Right? That's the top guys. Yeah. Respect. Against who? Against Vargas? I'd say 70-30. I favor him 70-30.
Okay.
Lopez, I'd say like 55-45. Figueroa, same. Figueroa, I'd say like 52-48. And Maxayo, I agree with you, like 80-20. Lee Wood, 60-40. I'd favor Ramirez. Warrington, 70-30. Kiko, 80-20. And then Mick Conlon, 80-20. I think that's...
I also have a feeling anyone who disagrees with us after the Dogboe fight, they're going to, even if they don't fully agree, they're going to be a little closer, I believe. You know what I mean? And I just think it's good to see gold medalists have success in the pros, right? Like, it kind of feels like, I don't know if you feel the same way. Some people don't care, but it's kind of a downer when a gold medalist fails in the pros. Like, you know what I mean? Like Ollie Harrison. It's like, that was a gold medalist. Like, well, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, what? Yeah. You want to see gold medalists go out there and succeed because it does enhance what being a gold medalist is. And I've always compared it to like the Heisman Trophy in football. It's a great achievement, and most Heisman Trophy winners are at least good in the pros, but some of them are just flops, and I think
a lot of guys you see as big time amateur fighters in the Olympics, the guys like, say, an Anthony Joshua, a Mick Conlon, who was just up on there, who feels he was robbed in amateurs, but you want to see that hype realized, right?
Yeah.
because you want to make it believe that, you know, the Olympics do matter and amateur boxing does groom good professionals. But, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes a
But I
lot of
would argue
times,
though, like
Tim
even though
Tebow wins the
people,
Heisman Trophy, and guess what? He's just not an NFL player.
yeah, but here's what I've always said: just because you're a Heisman Trophy winner, just because you're a gold medalist, doesn't mean you're going to make it in the pros, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, the chances that you make it are a lot higher than just some random dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like the percentages of making it in the pros are, I don't think people understand how low it is. If like you're a nobody, you know what I mean? It's a very low percentage where Heisman Trophy winners and gold medalists are batting like over 600, which is actually really good, right? But you still want to see it, you know, play out. Like you do want to see former Olympians, you do want to see gold medalists have success. That way, when we're watching the Olympics, we feel like, hey, this is the future, right?
Yeah.
But
Now the poll says 59% of the chat is excited about seeing Anthony Joshua, and I think that's more to do with the level of competition in this fight, right? I think if it was a bigger fight, obviously it'd be more excitement, but it's still good to see one of the faces of boxing, one of the top two guys as far as cash cow and appeal back in the sport, and hopefully for the sake of boxing, he has some success at least in this fight. And I just go back to, I think his demise, you know, this narrative being pushed that his demise is here. 3 out of the last 5. I think you have to take into account the level of competition, and it may get easier as he fights top competition than Usyk. Usyk was just his Achilles heel, I think. I did not think Anthony Joshua looked bad in those fights, particularly the second fight. I think it's just a testament to Usyk and his greatness. And I think the fact that Fury versus Usyk isn't happening right now is a testament to Usyk's greatness. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But
plus,
I
we
wanted to
can't.
ask you this. Yeah, go ahead.
Look, sometimes, bro, I just feel like fans just say things to say them. Like, look, we can't be like, God, there's a problem with boxing, guys. Everyone's obsessed with the and being undefeated. And then at the same time, Joshua's done. He needs to retire. He lost Usyk. Like, no, like, what we need to do is just encourage fighters to fight the best possible opposition. And if they take an L, understand that doesn't make them less of a fighter. It just, they're the same fighter, right? They're the same dude, right? Let me put it this way. If the 3-0 farts sitting ringside, okay, score the first fight for Triple G instead of a draw, does that make Canelo any less of a fighter? If the judges would have given Triple G the rematch instead of Canelo, is Canelo any less of a fighter because the 3 judges decided that it's going to go to Triple G? And the same vice versa. Is it an indictment on Triple G because the judges decided that Canelo won? Like, I think people need to like stop and think and kind of analyze the situation now. Is AJ any less of a fighter now than before he lost Usyk? I would argue he's the same fighter. It's just that a lot of people's perception has changed because he's coming off a loss, right? And maybe we're wired that way. Maybe it only makes sense that way. But I still think he's a great fighter. I think he has a lot to offer. I think he's number 3 in the world, in my opinion, behind only Fury and Usyk, quite frankly. That's it.
Now, they may be pushing back on the narrative, right? Or the packaging, because the messaging was Anthony Joshua was the dude, right? He's the biggest name and he's the dude. So if they see that, hey, he lost to Ruiz, he just lost twice to Usyk, then he's not the dude. He's not the dude. To me, that's fair. It's fair, but what's not fair is just to discount it altogether. And I think this stuff being pushed that Anthony Joshua's demise is here, I don't think it's going to age well. Now, he's 33 years old. You know, he's pushing into his mid-30s, but there are winnable fights there for him, big name fights out there for him in the top 5 or 6 in the weight class. They just are. And I think he's not done. He's not done. I don't think you go through a resume like I said, we can criticize him only having 27 fights in a decade. That's fair. You know, you should have fought a couple more guys in between these big fights to stay sharp. And he even said that this week. But when you go through Dillian White, Charles Martin, Brazil, Molina, Klitschko, Takam, Parker, Povetkin, Ruiz twice, Pulev, and Usyk twice. I don't think you just disappear after that. I think he has more in him, and I think he has some big wins in him if he goes through that gauntlet. And 3 losses, one of them I felt he just Ruiz got him. He snuck up on him. He got him. He avenged that one. And Usyk, he still looked good in those losses to me. I don't know. He didn't look great, but he looked good. And Usyk's just special. I don't know. I just think that this narrative being pushed, I don't think it's going to age well. Now, we talked about Joshua's comeback. We talked about Robeisy versus Dogboe, and I love that fight, by the way. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be Robeisy's coming out party. So I think we'll have a fight weekend that's going to fly under the radar and be fun. I want to ask you this question, and I think it's fair to ask because we're still fresh off of it. Is the Benavidez fights that are being thrown out there that in this 3-fight contract? Now he already fought Plant, Morrell Jr., Boo Boo Andrade, and possibly Charlo. Now we just did the percentages of how you think that fight plays out, who wins it with 126. Let's say it's Morrell Jr., then Charlo, then Boo Boo. What chances do you give Benavidez in winning those fights? Because all those are winnable fights for him.
Charlo, especially right now, like it would be like I would say like 75-25 Benavidez. Maybe if Charlo comes back, those percentages improve, but he's got to get active. Boo Boo, 60-40 Benavidez, I would say. Maybe like 62% for Benavidez, maybe a little higher. The Boogeyman, the name that should not be spoken. That one's harder because we don't. I feel like we don't have enough data on the guy, but I'll just say 60-40 Benavidez.
So you give Morrell Jr. probably the best shot of pulling off an upset against Benavidez, and Charlo the least likely to pull off that upset?
Given the circumstances, yes.
I would
but
agree,
keep in mind that I'm in the dark, like with both Charlo and
all of them. We don't know who those guys are right now because they simply haven't been doing it. That's the weird part about it.
The thing with Andrade is that I've seen him get dropped. I've seen him kind of struggle with dudes that if you're going to be like talking like everybody's avoiding you, you shouldn't be looking ordinary against those guys. So I feel more confident in the Andrade pick. But he's practically retired. You know what I mean? Like the guy's retired at this point. He's milking cows in Houston, right? And then of course you got, Morel is like, I don't have enough data on the guy. Like it's just like the data's kind of skewed. Like there's a lot of guesswork in both situations. Where in the Andrade, I have an idea how that fight would play out.
I'd say Benavidez probably 70% or more in all of them because we're talking about guys who their names exceed what they've actually accomplished and what they're telling us as far as eye test right now, right? Is Boo Boo is a guy that he's been around for a while. He's not young and he just simply hasn't done anything and he hasn't been active, right? He fought one fight in January and it was just a stay busy fight from not staying busy. And then Charlo been gone for 2 years. He didn't look all that great in his last fight. Obviously stuff going on up there. And then Morrell Jr., like you said, 8 fights. Now, stylistically, if we're looking at styles, I would say Morrell Jr., from what he looks like, from what I've seen so far, that would be the style that would give him the most problems because he's younger than Boo Boo. He can do a lot of the same things, but it looks like he has a little more power. Charlo, to me, is the easiest fight. And it's the thing that I was saying about the Canelo thing when they were trying to push that he's ducking Charlo for Bivol. It's like, to me, Charlo is a very winnable fight for guys at the top of 168 at 168, right? He's moving up in weight. He's not hard to find in there. Yes, he has power, but does he have power that's going to give Canelo, Benavidez, and Plant problems at the top of 168. Like
There's probably like a potential.
I'd love to see Plant versus Charlo at 168 because you know what? I'd pick Plant. I would pick him.
Oh, what I don't want people to like. Let's not forget. I mean, Jamal is known as he was known as the puncher of the two brothers, right? But he's been so inactive that like it's impossible to know where he's at. It's impossible. I gotta see him come back, have a tune up with someone average at least, have an idea. You know what I mean? Because it's ridiculous how long he's been inactive, bro. And he's still a champion. It is ridiculous. I never seen
this. Yesterday, it's at 652 days. You got to count now. Like there's a count now for Charlo.
And counting. Like there's a buffer between now and when they announce his next fight, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's only going to go up. And when they announce the fight, all fights are like 2-3 months away. So he's going to be out like 700 days, bro.
Over 700. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And that's why that's the good news for the Benavidez fans is I saw enough on Saturday to pick them over all those guys. Yeah. And on top of that, it's guys who are marketable with names, right? But their names, what they've achieved in the ring, what they look like in the ring does not match the name. So these are all winnable fights that you can get out there and add names to your resume and build that fight, the big fight that you want up even more. Or you can just go straight, like we said. I mean, we're fine with going straight to the big fight, and he'd have a chance in that fight as well. But I'd pick Benavidez without even batting an eye to beat Charlo. I'd pick him without even batting an eye to beat Boo Boo. I'd pick him, Morrell Jr., like I said, is more of a question mark, but I'd pick him. Pick him to win the fight. I don't necessarily think he has issues with any of these guys. I'd say 70% and higher for all of them. But Charlo has the least amount of chance, I think, to beat Benavidez. And that's why I want to see Charlo versus Plant, because I think that's a hell of a fight, by the way.
Like Casares beat Chavez Jr., and that's the dude like Morel knocks out for the belt, I guess. I think that's the fight. And it's like, wow, you knocked out a guy that beat Chavez Jr. like doesn't mean anything anymore. Like that's like you know what I mean? Like Jake Paul beat a guy that beat Chavez Jr. I mean, like it's gotta like it is what it is, guys. You know what I mean? Now he knocked him out like early, he made short work of him, but I don't know. I need to see Moriel. Like I actually like somebody in the chat there. They say Moriel versus Plant.
It's another.
And I like that fight. That's a fight where Plant could either expose him, and this dude wasn't shit, or he could beat Plant, and okay, now we're talking, right? So, I think that's the fight that they could do. To be honest,
168 is a division that's getting fun because you got Benavidez fought Plant, and then you start to hear about these possible fights with Benavidez, and then possibly Charlo and Boo Boo moving up, and then you got a guy like Mbila who beats Kongora, and he looks like he has a chin of steel. So you say, okay, that's another fun guy in the top 5 or 6. And then you got Ryder there with 2 top 10 wins last year. I know people are going to try to knock him down, but he's another good guy in the division. So you got good fights there. Like we talk about 126.
You do, and I'm going to tell you right now, Calix, for all I can actually prove that better fights are happening at 168 now than before Canelo showed up to the division. Because I keep hearing, Canelo, he's holding up the division. Canelo, is he? Because I honestly believe this. Like the only reason we got Plant versus Benavidez, because Plant's O was gone, because Canelo snatched it from him. So he was no longer protecting an O, and he was put in a position where he had an incentive now to fight, at least in his mind, to fight Benavidez, right? Because beating Benavidez was going to put him in position to get a rematch with Canelo. That was the only way to do it. And then Benavidez needed a common opponent that Canelo beat, right? To fight, to show, look, I'm at this level. I beat Plant, and it worked, right? And now people are talking about it. They have bass in the voice now when you talk about Canelo not wanting to fight the dude, right?
Mm.
Although the bass is kind of it's kind of going away a little bit right now, but we got the fight because Canelo came in and beat Plant. That's the only reason the fight happened, bro. They had years to fight when they're both undefeated and they were both world champions. They had years to fight and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So when I keep hearing things like, "Oh, Canelo's holding up," you only got this fight because Canelo showed up and snatched all the belts. So there's only one yellow brick road, right, to the belts, and you got to follow it. And it's to Canelo, and guess what? You're going to run into a Plant or something like that, and Benavidez had to take care of business, right? So I just want to put that out there, but I want to ask you a question though.
Before you do that, and hang on to that, remember it before you. I want to answer this question: is why is Plant being picked to fight everybody? He's the right guy in the right time at the right time. He had the last belt that he picked up that Benavidez dropped on the scale, right? He got 10 million. He got that fight. He had the last belt. That's why he fought Canelo. And to explain what you just said is now he's expendable since he lost the fight because nobody believed that he's going to work his way back up to the rematch with Canelo. It's now he's expendable. Now he gets the Benavidez fight. And also it's a good measuring stick because it's a common opponent with Canelo's last win against
all comebacks start with an expendable fighter, all of them.
Mm-hmm. And on top of that,
expendable.
Yeah, and on top of that, now other fighters are seeing him as damaged goods, right? So now Charlo may be saying, "Oh, if I'm gonna get a guy at the top, that might be the one. That might be the one." So vulnerability leads to fights, right? Vulnerability leads to fights. The more vulnerable you get, especially when you have a name now, that's the higher percentage that other guys are going to want to fight you. And that's why Plant, I say, is in the right place at the right time because Plant, you look at him on Twitter this week, he's putting out videos about him fighting and then entering the ring. He's not behaving like a fighter who just lost a fight. He's behaving like a fighter that says, I made 10 million against Canelo. We just did a 3 million plus live gate possibly in this fight. Maybe or maybe not. The pay-per-view numbers were good. I don't know, but that's the second pay-per-view I've been on.
That's a Quizno
sponsorship. I'm gonna have other options here to make money. I think he's happy.
I thought he had a Quizno sponsorship, but it turns out that's just the Caleb Plant logo. I'm like, damn, this has got a sponsorship on Quizno. Oh, never mind.
But what's your question? What was the question you were about to say?
And you've already seen it on Twitter. There's almost 10,000 views on it right now and climbing. I put a graphic out and I'm getting different responses. So some people are either misunderstanding it, they're getting triggered, they're getting whatever it is. Like, why can't people just answer a simple question? Like when I ask, should Benavidez be willing to cross the street and fight Canelo on his own? Mm-hmm. I'm getting everything but yes or no, right? I'm getting, Canelo's a free agent. Well, why doesn't he go over there and fight him?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Canelo fought Plant over there. Well, why can't he fight Benavidez over there? Oh, Benavidez is in a contract. He can't go over there, right? But Fulton's under contract with PBC, and he's going to Japan over to Top Rank to fight Inoue, right? So that doesn't mean they can't just kind of be like, okay, fine, go over there and get the bag, right? I don't get it, Calix. What am I missing here? Well, why are people making this so difficult?
You're not missing anything. First, let me preface this with neither you or I care what network this fight ends up at or what the splits are. In fact, as boxing fans, we've said this is the less we know about this stuff, the better, right? Because just make the fight, and the fights that are easy to make, we don't even know. I don't know what Haney and Lomachenko split is. I don't know any of that. I don't know what the split is. I don't know if there's a rematch clause. I'm just assuming there's no rematch clause or rehydration clauses or catch weights or any of that, just because these fighters behave like fighters. Give me more of that. So we don't care if it's Showtime, DAZN, because it's the price is probably gonna be the same regardless, right? It's all gonna pop up on my TV regardless. The point here for me is and the reason is a fair question, is I saw your live for a while yesterday, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier. It's YouTubers not having not having access to Canelo and having access to other fighters. So you hear journalists ask Canelo constantly, about Benavidez, about what network he's going to fight on, and all
Which
this
I
stuff.
said was fair, right?
But the people who have access to the Benavidez's of the world, they're not asking the same questions. So we don't know, because we don't have proper journalism, as to would Benavidez be willing to cross the street. On top of that, we have to ask ourselves, because this cross the street thing became a thing by a lot of people who are now saying Canelo should cross the street, is why, if Canelo's the fight you've been going after for a couple years now, that's the one. Why get on the Boxing Voice in 2022? Because this happened in 2022, and say, you know what? I just signed an extension with PBC. I just signed an extension with Samson. I'm staying where I'm at. If you want it, why not go and try to negotiate something with Trust Fund Eddie and DAZN, if that's the fight you want, to make it easier, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't care about the business part of it, but it goes back to what I was talking about yesterday, is some of my favorite fighters, Bud Crawford, Regis Prograis, they made business decisions. Now they are ducked, but they made business decisions that made it easier for them to be ducked, right? Mm-hmm. Bud didn't have to re-sign with Top Rank. Why did he do it? Because the minimums were so high. That's why he did it. Same thing with Regis Prograis, huge signing bonus. That's why he did it. They made themselves easier to be ducked. I want the fight, Canelo Benavidez. I don't care where it's at, but for the people who started this cross the street thing, and we know who they are, is you have to be consistent in it now, because you set that precedent. So you're telling me that Ryan has to agree to 136 with a 10-pound rehydration clause, right? You're telling me that Ryan has to not only do the first fight where we won it, the second fight as well, before the first fight even happens. You're telling me Ryan has to agree to everything in order to get that fight, because the A-side fighter dictates the terms. And I don't care if Tank is a free agent, or I don't care if Tank, wherever Tank wants to fight, that's where he has to have it. All right. And the same thing with Errol, with Bud. Bud's got to go over there. I don't care if, he possibly had 50 million on the table that he could bring to Errol Spence, or 25. It's not about that. He's comfortable working with Al. He's comfortable working with Showtime. That's where the fight has to happen, because he's the A-side. For some reason, this stops at the Canelo door. It doesn't.
But the problem is, Calix, is that for all the leverage people say Spence has, for all the leverage they say Tank has, well, whatever fighter, whatever leverage they say they have, right? None of them have the leverage Canelo has. None of them. Like, Canelo has everything, no matter what you value as a fan. You know how we there's people debating that Ryan Tank's a better fight than Haney Loma because they're more popular and they're bigger on social media. Well, whatever it is, whatever you value, right? And some people, Loma versus Haney's better substance-wise. It's a more substantive fight, more meaningful legacy fight, which that's a camp I'm in, right? But let me put it this way: if you value the belts, right? Canelo has all of them. If you value Lenio, that's Canelo. If you value Undisputed, that's Canelo. If you value taking people's O's, that's Canelo. If you value activity, being more active in the ring, Canelo. If you value popularity, like in terms of social media followers, Canelo. If you value money generated at the gate, pay-per-view, Canelo. He literally has all the chips, like all of them. There isn't one chip that Benavidez has over him, not one. So my realistic mind is, if you're honest and you want to assess these things, if you want to see the fight and push for it, it's easy to say Canelo fight Benavidez or it's a duck. It's easy to say that. That's easy. Mm-hmm. But you have the balls when seniors in your platform to ask them, Hey, Senior, I want to see the fight too, man. But come on, let's be realistic. You got to go to. If you want to, especially you want to fight in September. If Canelo gives you the call, are you going to go over there and fight him? It's a simple question.
Yep.
And you know what? Senior might say yes. He might say, yeah, we'll go. But somebody needs to ask them. Ask these guys, are you willing to go over there? Canelo may be willing to go. Like, he might be willing with a right offer to go to Showtime and fight you. That's possible. No one's saying you can't offer anything. But if Canelo is helping, no, you got to come over here. Oh, but we're going to offer you more money. I don't give a shit. I want to fight here on the zone, on Matchroom. Come over here. Come sign the paper, big dog. Okay, come sign the paper, you monster. Okay, and let's get it on the zone, right? I don't want to hear, oh, the fight's too big to be on an app. Oh, they're going to make more money if it's on Showtime. Like, people worrying about shit they shouldn't even be worried about. Like, Canelo calls the shots where the fight takes place. Okay? That's just the way it's always been. Nobody told Floyd he had to cross the street to fight somebody else. Okay? Canelo, he wanted the opportunity to fight Floyd. Guess what? He had to fight him on Showtime. That's where the fight had to happen. Point blank. All right?
I've seen your comment section when you drop this stuff. It's people make it out to be something complex, and it's not. This is very easy. I'm not understanding. It's an easy point to understand. It's
1 + 1 is not it's not calculus.
Listen.
What's 1 + 1?
What do you mean? I hear them do this. But Canelo's a free agent. But Canelo went over there to fight Plant. Plant had the belt, and they held it up. And Canelo, he bluffed that he's leaving the table, right? And that fight, remember, was supposed to be September, Mexican Day weekend. When did it end up being? November, because of the negotiations and the hardball playing by the PBC, trying to lock him into multi-fight deal, trying to get a little bit more money out for Caleb Plant. But what did Canelo do? He said, Eddie, I'm going to go over there for one fight, and I'm coming right back with all the belts. That's what we're going to do here. I'm going over there. I'll come back with all the belts, and then we'll resume business as usual. How did I know he said that? Because he comes back, and even though the DAZN deal was tougher with Bivol in it and Golovkin in it, he still went ahead with that deal after. He'd rather work with them over there, and he's entitled to it. He's
like Canelo's willing to if he says, yo, Eddie, I'm gonna go to Showtime, fight Benavidez. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to be, oh, Canelo, don't do it. Don't go to Showtime. I'm not going to say that. I'm all for the fight, right? Just like you guys are. But for some reason, some people don't want to go on record and say, yeah, you got to cross the street, buddy. Okay. And the only reason I use the term cross the street is because that's a term that the cool kids, like the one saying Canelo needs to cross the street, started, just like you said, right? So it's a language they're going to understand. Okay. So all I'm saying is this. If you in any way, shape, or form can't understand why Benavidez needs to cross the street, all right, just like Fulton did to go fight Monster, and Monster doesn't have the leverage Canelo does, right? If you don't understand that, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Even Wilder knew you had to cross the street to go fight Fury if you wanted that third fight. Okay? Like, even he knew that. Like you got to be realistic here. Like, I'm just saying.
Yeah. And like you said, the Benavidez may be completely open to it, right? So we got to wait and see. But the point is, we want people asking these questions because they're definitely asking it of Canelo. But they're not asking it of the Benavidez's. And they say keep the same energy, right? Is if you're demanding these other fighters cross the street because they're the B side, then you should be demanding the B side give up. The A side has all the leverage, especially in this case.
And so we've already seen contracted PBC fighters cross the street, right? Because I know the argument is, well, Canelo's a free agent, so he could do what he wants. Poor Benavidez, he's stuck in Showtime. There's nowhere he can go. So Canelo needs to cross the street. He's the only one that could do it. Like, no, Fulton's under contract with PBC. He's going to Top Rank to fight anyway, right? I mean, Andy Ruiz was under contract with Al Heyman. Guess what? They let him cross the street of the zone, okay, to go fight Joshua, right? The Argentinian cat, Jesus Christ, his name escaped me. He fought Texera at the zone. Then he fought Charlo for Undisputed. Okay, Castaño crossed the street to Golden Boy, got the belt from Texera, came back, and they were able to do the Undisputed fight with Charlo.
Mm-hmm.
Saying.
Yeah, and you're right. This is easy, though. It's cross the street. It's free agent, not free agent. Fought Caleb Plant over there. It doesn't matter to me. It's just make the fight. And we're on record as to say, put it on Showtime, put it on DAZN, Crow promote it. Who cares? Make it. But if it's not made, we have to make this clear. If it's not made due to network issues, promotional issues, advisor issues, we know who to place the blame at the feet of.
Like I still remember, and somebody put in the chat, it's not an exaggeration. I was being told on the Boxing Voice that Caleb is the A-side, right? And why? Because they were using things Canelo said like against him. So since Canelo said, I want to become undisputed, this is the argument they would use. Like, dudes will call in, and they thought they got it. That's the best part when they think they got it. You know, they're like, well, hey, D-Star, you an idiot or what? Did Canelo not say that he wants to dispute it? Yes or no? And I'm like, yes. Well, there you go. If he's a man of his word, he needs to be willing to do what PBC says, or he's a liar. Like, what? And they think they got it. Like, what do you say to people that they think that caller thought he got it? You know what I mean? Like, he thought he had me. Like, oh, see? He admitted he said that. Is Canelo a man of his word, or is he a liar? Because if he doesn't accept the terms of PBC, he's a liar. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The whole thing's insane, brother.
Yeah. The good news is you have a generous A-side, in my opinion, from where I'm sitting. Is he's proven that, I'll go over there and work for that fight.
Maybe A-side to a fault, and I hate to say that. And
then, I'll give this guy $10 million instead of $8 million. Billy Joe pops up the day before the fight and says, I want a 22-foot ring. He's like, give him the 22-foot ring. I'll break it as orbital bone in a much bigger ring. To me, that's the tough part about this for me, is because after Saturday night, I just wanted to talk Plant versus Benavidez. But what happened is just this stuff just started rolling in, and I was like, oh, my God. And then people act like it's just fringe people saying it, and it's not.
Do you remember when Plant came out and he's like, oh, they're trying to give me all these unreasonable demands. Like, the contract says that if I beat Canelo, I need to rematch him.
Mm-hmm.
Brother, he's coming over to PBC. And if you beat him, like you get another payday. Like what do you mean? Like the whole thing was retarded, bro. Like the whole, and I think people have forgotten the headache that it was in those negotiations, right? Yeah. I think people forgot that. Like, he didn't get to fight on Mexican Independence Day weekend because they try to use that against him. Like, oh, you want to fight on this day? You better agree to our terms. And he said, no. Like, I'm not going to be blackmailed here. Like, you know what I mean? Do you want the fight, yes or no? And I think they offered it again, and I think they held fast, and they said, look, I'll go there for one fight. That's it. And that's only because they were offering like $50 million, right? Mm-hmm. I think it ended up being 45, actually. But nonetheless, it was really good money, right? Canelo took it. But I don't care if PBC offers him more money than DAZN to fight Benavidez. If he says, I want it on DAZN, what is it to me if he's making more or less and all that? Now, another thing, Alex, I think Canelo has been a little too generous as an A-side, in my opinion, because people use it against him, right? Mm-hmm. He was. Think about how unprecedented it is for an A-side to cross the street and go to the other guy's promotion. And then now they want to use it against him. Like, now he's expected to do that all the time, right? Like think about the payday he gave Plant, $10 million.
Yeah.
10 mil. That was 10 times plus what he's ever made. And good for Plant. I'm not mad about it. But now, like, he's expected to fork that out every time he fights somebody from PBC at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people are factoring that in. I just don't.
He's expected to do it over on Showtime on their terms.
Yeah, it reminds you of that the gym owner that Plant helped out that one time, right? He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get evicted," and Plant gave him $5,000 so they don't evict him from the gym. And then he was expecting Plant to pay it every month.
Yeah.
Right. I just feel like that's why people don't do nice things in this world anymore, and that's why now, like, I have a better understanding now why Floyd never really gave much as an A side. Like, I could see why now.
About $3 million.
Then the next guy's gonna want more, and then they're gonna like get. I think he gave Robert like $3 or $4 million. He Maidana like about $3 million. Canelo got $5 million. He just kind of stuck to his guns, and do you want the fight or not? Because I know you ain't gonna make that money anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right. For whatever reason, and maybe it's because of the zone deal, but Canelo's always been a little more generous to the B side.
I think it's legacy based. I think he's always been he knows his boxing history, and he's always been particularly I think obsessed with Mexican boxing history and climbing the Mexican pound for pound all-time ranking. So in order to do that, you got to wheel and deal. You got to get things moving. I got to get that undisputed fight. Even if I got to even if I got to pay this guy $10 million and go over there for this fight, that's what we're going to do. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's what we're going to do. I think he wants to get things
He's
moving.
Also stubborn.
I saw it in the interview he did yesterday. He said, we already have our goal for this year. And that's what I respect too, is every year they come in and this is our goal this year. 2021 is undisputed. 2022 is ending this trilogy and try to move up the weight class to get these belts. He got kicked down from that. But this year it seems to be go back to Mexico and then try to get revenge. That's the goal this year. And then he said, next year we'll talk about the Benavidez goal or defenses at 168. That's what I appreciated is legacy based, not only monetarily, it's legacy based, and there's goals.
Yeah.
So I mean that's where I'm at with it. And good news is I think that fight happens. The other good news is this weekend we got good fights. Anthony Joshua's back, not against great competition, but he's back, and I think he'll look good and get his feet back, and I think he'll fight 2 to 3 times this year. I think that's a positive. That's another positive. He's talking about that this week. He's like, I need to get more active. I need to get more active. And that's a positive. And also the positive is Robeisy Ramirez, this could be his coming out party this weekend against a good opponent, and that's going to be a fun fight. And there's intrigue in that. Can he stop this guy? Will it be a decision? Will it be a tougher fight than normal? So a lot of positives. And, just for you, what are the positives? And then let everybody know what's going on tonight. Roundtable, Ringside Reporter.
Make sure you guys go to Ringside Reporter, 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have some good discussion. We'll have Ring IQ on, MC in the Ring, and Lukey will be joining us as well. So make sure you guys tune in. Look, I think this is going to be, we're going to look back at it like, hey, that's the first time Robeisy Ramirez became world champion. So it's significant in that sense. And it's going to be, I think, the start of the race to who is the best 126 pounder, right? Yeah. It's going to be a chase to that. Right now, Lara's ahead. You can argue objectively, but I think Robeisy's going to make a case right now. And I don't know. Like, we got to think, is Top Rank going to work with Matchroom to make some of these fights? I'm not sure, but if Eddie wants to grow in the U.S., he needs to work with Top Rank, right? He just has to. And I think a Robeisy Ramirez, Lara fight down the line, it makes sense. What doesn't make sense, and what I'll say is not good of the weekend, is that this fight's going to be in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in a casino. Like,
true.
Well, why is Dogboe, a dude from Africa, fighting a Cuban in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Like, what?
Yeah.
Maybe Top Rank has some sweet deals from the Hard Rock, because I've noticed they put a lot of fights in Oklahoma, and I don't want to take anything away from fight fans in Oklahoma. Like I guess it's a hotbed, right? But that fight should have been in Miami or some, to be honest with you. Like I'm just saying, like put in New York in the Garden Theater. But that's still an issue that boxing has. Like, get out of these fucking casinos. I know the money's quick and easy and guaranteed, but
actually promote the fight.
Promote the fight. Put it somewhere like that makes sense. Try it. Like and it's better for TV. You know what I mean?
Try to get something going in South Florida with the Cuban fighter.
Yeah, like that's the only thing I would say about that.
All right. On that note, we out of here. Appreciate everybody rolling through. God bless. Peace.